Welcome back to Secret Surge, everyone. And this is our news and hot takes segment where we will be diving into the under-broadcasted performances and controversial topics around running and athletics.
It was an exciting week of races. I watched half marathon champs at 3 a.m. in the morning over here. I thought it was an interesting race. I'm excited in particular to dive into that one a bit.
We had a few different events over the last couple weeks, so we're going to talk about the half marathon champs and the indoor track national champs. So half marathon was March 2nd, and the indoor track national championships were February 22nd and 23rd. So we're a bit beyond that, but I think there's a lot of notable performances and news from that.
So the half marathon champs for the US was in Atlanta, and that happened on last Sunday now. The race was to decide who was going to compete at the World Road Running Champs. So top 3 is pretty much, you guarantee your spot to go. And it was a fun race where you had 2 Puma athletes win for the men and the women's title. Great performances, but we like to go a little bit further and talk about the people that may not have been mentioned. So I'll start off with our guest from last week, Carrie Elwood, who we spoke to, and we knew that she would be racing in this race on the day that we released her episode. She had a fantastic race where she finished 8th woman in a time of 69:35, which was, I believe, a 36-second PB. And to break that down for people, that is an average of 5:19 per mile, which is rapid. For context, it's faster than I averaged in the 10K, which is just over 6 miles.
Yes.
Very good
quick
performance there.
We don't know what that is per kilometer since, metric system and stuff.
Yeah, I've always been a miles.
Oh, good. Okay.
So.
Then we're fine.
Yeah, I've always been a mile girly. But yeah, no, it was a great performance for her. It was her debut for the A6 Mammoth Track Club, and I think she was not someone that was put on that list to be in the top 10. USATF brought out a graphic of the top athletes that were going to be at that race, and it was about 20 names, and her name wasn't on it. It will be next time, that's for sure.
Absolutely. She's at least got some sponsorship now, although it's same level as Stevie, I believe, where it's not an individual ASICS contract.
Yes, it's the same kind of one as me, so it's definitely a help, and we're excited to have her. And our other teammate, Anthony Raftis, placed 14th in the men's race in a time of 62:47, which was just 1 second slower than his Valencia PB back in October. Most people know Valencia is one of the fastest courses out there, lots of fast times running, so be as close to that time in Atlanta on a very windy day, very hilly course, was a really good performance. And Anthony is also working a full-time job at the same time as being on the team. And I think it's a real testament to the hard work that you can achieve whilst also working full-time.
So the other ones that I noticed from the results, because I basically just went down and tried to see who was running unattached, or that says like an elite club, because usually those elite clubs they don't get a lot of money. So one of the men came in 7th place. His name is Ryan Ford, and he ran a time of 61:29. And when I looked him up, it seems like he's not big time sponsored. It does say Zap Endurance on. Have to look into that.
I'm familiar with the Zap athletes. I believe they're based around Boone in North Carolina, which is where I went to uni. So yeah. I was pretty familiar with them and their athletes. And I think the third female may have been a Zap athlete in the last year, being sponsored by Brooks. It was Vestry.
Oh, Amanda. Yeah. Amanda Vestry.
She had a bit of a breakthrough race, I'd call it, at Sound Running the 10 last year. She was, I think, in the B race and ran a phenomenal time, and everyone's like, and who is this athlete that's just gone for it? So she's since then gone on to some good things, and Olympic trials, great things. So it was cool to see her race, but I believe it's the same team.
Yeah, the other person that I recognized, she was 14th woman. Her name's Molly Bookmeyer, and I know of her because she used to run for McCurdy Trained when I was on McCurdy Trained. So she's no longer with them, as far as I can tell, but she is also not sponsored, doesn't have a team in her bio. I see nothing like that. But yeah, she ran a 71:22, it looks like, for that course, but 14th, so, and unsponsored, which is impressive. All these athletes are extremely impressive, and we're gonna hopefully be following them over the next time.
Great to see what they can achieve in the future. It was a speedy race considering how tough the course was. The commentators kept saying that they had expected it to be about 90 seconds slower than the Houston half marathon.
Wow.
And people just really proved that they were going to run fast, whether it was a hard, windy day or not. I love seeing a race where you can see people are just working hard, a true, honest race. I love to see it.
Me too. I think I like the harder courses better. It keeps it interesting. At least for longer races, but I'm sure they would disagree with me, the athletes. I'm going to have to put some trail athletes in here.
I loved the trail runners. I love trail running, so that I'd love that too. Well, let's move on to the indoor track side of things, I think.
Yeah, we got some big performances there as well. So I know this individual. I had the privilege of having dinner with her and a couple other Brooks Beast athletes before the Monmouth Mile, which was in New Jersey last summer. Her name is Valerie, I hope I say it right, Tobias. I might not be saying that last name right, but she is an 800-meter runner based out of Seattle with the Brooks team, and she made the world's team for the 800, and she ran a pretty big PR. She ran 1:59:55, and I think they have more of a sponsorship in that Brooks team. However, I just wanted to highlight her because she's never made a world's team, and I think she had a breakthrough performance.
Yeah, sub 2 minutes is a phenomenal time, and I think it's important to remember that whilst we're seeing lots of world records being broken, sub 2 minutes is a time that most guys are going for sub 2 still. So
yeah, exactly.
It's great to see.
We got also a heptathlete on our news. Her name is Katie.
Love it.
Yes, her name is Katie Edem. I know of her through social media. She came in 6th place overall at the Indoor National Champs for the U.S. She PR'd in 4 out of the 5 events and had an overall PR.
I used to do the heptathlons.
You did?
Yeah.
More fun facts about Stevie.
I did it as a teenager, but I was like quite mediocre at all of them, and then good at the running. So
but yeah, she did great. She is unsponsored. I know that she is an ex-endurance athlete like myself. I think there's a chance we might hear from her on here in the near future, great. So stay tuned for that. I'm just going to note a couple other quick unattached or seemingly unattached athletes. Haley Lear was 4th place in the women's 400-meter final. She won the 400 at Mount Sac. I think it was last year. So Wes Ferguson, 3rd place for the men's 800. From what I could see on these athletes, like, they are high level, and they definitely don't have a contract, or they don't state that they have a contract.
It's good to see him in, again, like podium positions, 2nd, 3rd place. I think these are medalist athletes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will say, because I've heard this said, is that the indoor nationals is kind of like a cop-out sometimes, like to get you to have that, for at least the U.S., to get like a national title. Because, like, for example, some of the higher level, really like world-class Olympian athletes, they weren't there.
It's like, if everyone turned up at the race, it would be the fastest race and you'd get the honest champion, but like, you gotta turn up.
Yeah, and the fact is the PR entry doesn't always win. Like, every time I go back to Matt Centrowitz's race, his Olympic gold, it's like no one expected him to win and he wasn't the fastest in there, but it's if you have good tactics. So I think it is still a great accomplishment.
And I think indoors is so, you have to be so tactical with indoors anyway, just because there's usually so many of you on the track, and you need to be race smart to be able to negotiate people, know when to make the move. And some athletes don't know how to do this. Athletes are just used to being at the front on a 400-meter track where they've got all the space in the world and they just go hard. But that's a time trial, essentially, not a race. So to be able to race indoors and race well is something I'm still trying to be able to do, something I haven't quite mastered yet. So I really think it's impressive when athletes can show their class on an indoor track. We spoke about in, I think, our very first episode, that we wanted to see what the top athletes were doing behind the scenes. We didn't want to just see the workouts. We wanted to know what they were doing in their everyday life. And it wasn't quite what I was expecting, but Mondo Duplantis released a single. He released his new single, Bop, on the same day that he broke his 11th world record. Now, that's it, pretty insane to me. Have you listened to it? Have you listened to Bop yet?
I honestly didn't know this existed, so this is
Bop
news
has been
for me.
in my head. It was giving me very kind of 2017 club vibes.
It sounds like it does.
It was kind of 2017 club vibes. It was catchy. It was in my head, at least.
Oh my goodness.
So that's what he's doing in his free time, and look at him, he's got 11 world records, so...
You can't pole vault all day. Yeah, you can't pole vault all day. You gotta do something else. Yeah. Might as well make Bop.
Nice way. Yeah, Bop. Check it out.
Check out Bop. I gotta check it out.
Yeah, oh, and then also I saw this week Jakob Ingebrigtsen started a YouTube channel. Now I love a YouTube channel, but this one, not about running. Jakob is a car enthusiast, and I watched his YouTube video, and it was him in his garage with all these fancy cars, and it's him and Henrik Ingebrigtsen and like a whole team of people fixing up these really like luxurious sports cars. Like, I'm no expert in cars in the slightest, but it was like Lamborghini type things.
Wow.
And yeah, they're like fixing up the engines and that stuff, and I was like, wow, okay.
How many subscribers?
More about these athletes.
How many subscribers does that have?
I did see a short below it of him running, and I was like, yeah, there you go. Give the fans what they want. It was funny because it said, I don't even know what you call it, expert car person, amateur runner was the bit I took in. He called himself amateur runner.
Well,
so I thought that was funny.
I think I put in my bio at one point, well, I did the opposite, said amateur, engineer, and professional runner.
Funny though. So yeah, I thought we could end with those light-hearted bits before we move on to our hot take.
Yeah,
let's get some controversial opinions. Let's see what's gonna ruffle a few feathers.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give a bit of a background because I realized from some of the feedback in our first episode, I mentioned Shelby Houlihan. Not everyone knows who Shelby Houlihan is, and one of my non-running friends was like, I really liked your episode, but I have no idea who this is, and I also don't know what like a band is, and I had no idea what you were talking about. So I'm gonna give...
It's great to know that we're reaching out to not just the running crowd, and we'll have to do better at explaining some of the stuff.
So she is a athlete who's had a lot of track and field accolades, but she is an American record holder in, I think, multiple events, or she was in multiple events, notably like the 1500 for outdoor track. She was on the Bowerman Track Club with Grant Fisher was also on the Bowerman Track Club. Yeah. 4 years ago, she was tested because professional athletes have to be tested for banned substances, for illegal substances. There's a whole list. So she got tested and the test was positive for a steroid called nandrolone. Nandrolone is an anabolic steroid, so it can be like a testosterone type enhancing thing from what I understand. And she denied having taken anything with nandrolone in it, and she claimed it was from the pork of a burrito that she got at like a burrito truck, because it was apparently this is present in high amounts in certain types of meat. And so she tried to claim her innocence. Ultimately, they denied her. They said she didn't have enough evidence.
This was a big deal 4 years ago. I think this is why most runners are at least aware of Shelby and the countless number of memes to don't eat a beef burrito, don't eat a pork burrito.
Well, and she wasn't even the first one to have this claim or have this happen. This has happened to other track athletes where I don't know if it was nandrolone, but they attributed their positive test to contaminated food or contaminated meat. It's not uncommon. So anyways, what happened was she has maintained her innocence on social media, and she has trained for the last 4 years. She is not sponsored because a sponsor isn't going to take her right now. And she competed in the indoor national champs, and she made the world's team for the 3K. She came in second to Nikki Hiltz.
Yeah.
And essentially one of the things that happened was FloTrack and Track, like another track network, posted her result, and Citius Mag did not post her result. And there's a specific post with Whitney Orton, who I think also made the team.
Nikki decided not to go at all to the World Champs to focus on Grand Slam track, which is starting up in April, I believe.
So therefore, it was going to be Shelby and Whitney running it. And Citius didn't post anything about it. And while I am blocked on my personal page, I can still see the posts on our podcast page. So
she's got Secret Surge stalking now.
I'm not following them for us yet. Probably shouldn't. But there were people commenting, and there were people saying, like, guys, it's weird that you're not mentioning second place. And there's like people that agree, saying you don't have to cheer her on, but you're a news outlet and you need to report the news, and if you're supposedly an unbiased news outlet. Other people, completely different stance, where they're like, thank you for not posting this result, thank you for not even highlighting her at all. I mean, I know some people who would even be mad that we're talking about this now because they don't want her name to be mentioned anywhere. But the reality is she's out there. So, I mean, Stevie, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, I think it's a different situation compared to the documentary that was created by FloTrack, because that kind of came off quite as a celebration of her comeback type thing, which I don't necessarily think we need to be drawing attention to people with a history of bans and doping to. But I think this is slightly different because they are a news outlet, and it can just therefore become confusing if you don't see a person for second place. Honestly, if they just put, first place, second place, third place, list of who it was, they don't need to make a big deal of it, but I would...
Right, you don't even have to have her picture in there. Like, you could...
Yeah, if, that's the stance that they can take, which I do understand as well. I think, the news should probably come first.
Right, and the other comment that came up in that was somebody was genuinely asking who got second, because they didn't know. But Citius said, full results available at, and then they put results at usatf.org. And someone said, that still goes to last year's team trials. Here's the actual link. So the link wasn't even correct. They just don't want to say her name.
Said, go do your own research. What, you want us to tell you? Kind of lazy.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Stop going to Instagram for your news feeds.
That's where all
Go to the actual website.
I wouldn't have known about BOP without Instagram.
Well, obviously I didn't. My, I guess, hot take for this is that athletes coming back from a ban should not be shunned or treated poorly. I think generally people would agree you don't treat someone poorly, but I do think shunning in the world of athletics, you're treating them pretty poorly. Like if you're ignoring them and acting like they don't exist. So that's my personal opinion on it.
Yeah, there's points to remember when, like, at the end of the day, we're all just people, and, you know, you do deserve to give and receive just common decency, which people can forget when it's seeing someone through a screen on the television, through news, and you kind of forget that's a real person with a real life. So I believe that you can have a stance one way and still just be a decent person.
One of the other things I thought of is, because it's not like she said, yeah, I doped, but I served my time and I want to come back now and I learned from my lesson. She has said she hasn't doped. So I think it's very different. I wonder what the response would have been if she maybe admitted to it. And that's the other reason why I've said previously I believe in lifetime bans. So I think if she got a true positive, she shouldn't have been allowed to come back. However, I also really distrust the integrity of our testing. And I might attach like a couple articles at some point or talk about them, but there's a lot of parts of the testing where it's too subjective. Like, it goes to a panel of people that have like opinions, and a lot of those opinions are always going to side with the lab. Like, they're not going to go against what the lab says, even if there was a mistake maybe in the collection process. Like, maybe they're not going to do that, and it's based on a vote. So that's part of the reason why I have like more empathy in this case. Like, I think she is an extremely talented athlete, and I think her times are probably pretty legit, but I also have believed that most people at the top level are doping because I think you can get around it easier too.
Hopefully they're always striving to improve the testing and the procedures, because for an athlete to be unfairly banned is never anything anyone wants to see. I mean, unfortunately, Shelby's just been tainted for me, and that is the same with any athlete that's served a ban. They do come back tainted, and you question the performances, and it's hard to cheer for them. I do believe that with the surveillance that she's probably under in the doping and the testing system, I imagine these performances now are probably clean. They're probably her genuine performances, but it's just is tainted now.
Yeah, that is the really unfortunate part, is your reputation is pretty much done. And that's scary too, because if someone, I don't know, I have such weird conspiracy theories sometimes. If someone like has it out for you and they have access to something and they can be like, well, we're gonna alter your test a little bit, and then you're just like,
well, that's what like so many of the conspiracy theories are. It's like, oh, well, I left my bottle unattended whilst I was doing my long run and someone slipped something in it there. Okay, maybe.
Depends who it is. I don't know if I probably don't believe most of those stories. I
feel like I'd be the same as when I'm at airport security, where I'm like, well, shit, what do I have on me? Like, what? Like, have I got a gun? Have I got, like, what if I accidentally put something in my bag, even though I've never touched drugs or a weapon in my life?
I accidentally had pepper spray once, and it got through. It's sketchy. I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah, but I look like
we're all gonna
testing
die on the plane
system to that is where you're like, well, what if I accidentally took a drug? What if I accidentally took one?
Well, there was the Ali Ostrander story, and some people, I think, don't even believe that. They're like, oh yeah, you were just saying you were taking acne medication when you wanted to cover up whatever, which I don't believe at all. I think she's completely clean.
Yes, I did. She did come to mind whilst we were discussing it, and it was one of those ones that, I genuinely believed her and her story as well. With that case where she served just, I think it was like half a year of a ban, and I didn't even know about it until the ban finished, was when she spoke about it. So it definitely didn't receive the same publicity as a lot of other cases, but there was obviously some kind of appeal there for lack of knowledge, and the difference I think there was that she took some responsibility for it. She didn't say, no, I didn't do it. It was this medication. I should have looked. I should have checked, but I didn't. So
it's really a controversial issue in all of athletics. Like, I do think a lot of people just don't get caught. I mean, yeah, Lance Armstrong never got caught. I don't think until later. Like, it's crazy. It's really crazy. Exactly. So that's our hot take for the day. We hope to spark some discussions, because even if it's not about Shelby, it's about other athletes and doping in general or testing, and we want to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
Recognize that we're giving our opinions here. It's just our opinions. It's just like whether we believe something or not. And we are very well aware that people are going to have different opinions, and that is totally fine by us.
And that's where the discussions come in, which is awesome.
So
we will see you guys next week. I think we're going to have another guest, so stay tuned for that, and like and subscribe, and if you guys can comment, that helps us out a lot. If you have any suggestions for the podcast, let us know. Okay, everyone, have a great week.
Have a great week. Bye.